So today we are going to talk about the urbanization and the agglomeration in Tanzania. Tanzania, as one of a fast growing economy, it has also real estate development and the urbanization in high rates. As Tanzania experiencing one of the fastest rates growing in the major towns, today we need to highlight why Tanzania it has in the first route to be in urbanization. Starting with drivers of urbanization, one is a natural growth population. Tanzania with a high fertility rate around 4 to 5 children per woman. This it bring a lot of people in urban areas due to the factor number 2, which is a rural-urban migration, as many young people move to town searching for opportunities and a good life. They tend to observe and the growing in the market strange. Third driver for urbanization in the reclassification of areas. The Tanzania government reclassifies some of urban areas, such as small towns to big towns. For example, growing of small towns to big cities. Also, structure shift. Move from rural economy-based to urban-based economy with the government. This is accelerating for many young people to move from rural areas to urban areas, and this factor alone bring a lot of urbanization factor rising in urban areas. Now let's look about the urban population trend, starting with the increases. In Tanzania, from 2012 to 2026, the rural areas tend to lose more people to urban areas, as from 12.3 million of people in 2012, and now in 2026, urban areas it has around 27 million. This is large increase in the urban population, around 220%. Another trend is percent. In 2026, urban areas has around 38.1% of entire population in Tanzania, and this is taking huge of lives of people nowadays are found in urban areas. Another trend is the annual growth rate. Major towns are growing around 5.2% to 12%. For example, this depending on the urbanization rate. For example, in Dodoma, it's around 12%. In Dar es Salaam is around 5.9%. Mwanza is 5.3%. And the other towns also as this increasing in a trend of growing. The key growth poles. In Tanzania, the key growth poles are following. One is Dar es Salaam, around the all coastal areas. Second one is Dodoma, around the central areas. Third one is Mwanza, this is around the lake zone areas. And fourth is Mbeya, which is around the highland, Southern Island areas. Also Arusha, this is the northern part of Tanzania. And also Morogoro is another growth pole in Tanzania, due to that to be in between Dodoma and Dar es Salaam. Now let's look about top 10 towns or cities with a high urbanization rate. Starting with number 1, Dar es Salaam. This is the largest city in Tanzania, and it has a large growing of the city. And in near future, it will absorb some of areas in the coastal region. For example, it is expected that 10 years from now, Dar es Salaam will be a metro area and the big city absorbing towns such as Kibaha, Bagamoyo, also Kisarawe, and Mkuranga. All of these areas are the towns near to Dar es Salaam and expected to be absorbed to be in a major city, which in the next few years, it will have almost 10 to 15 millions of people. The second one is Mwanza. This is the second largest city in Tanzania with around 1.5 million of people. And this is a playground of lake zone areas. It has a lot of people, a lot of opportunities Number 3 is Dodoma. This is the emerging city. Actually, in percentage-wise, Dodoma is number 1 for having large urbanization in Tanzania. But due to we're taking many metrics here to look about the population, also we are taking a look about the urbanization rate, the private, wealthy, as well, checking about the development of infrastructure. Dodoma, it has many infrastructures is going on from now. For example, the government is building the international airport. Also, there is a ring road. Also, the State House is in its completion, as well internal infrastructures and the roads. Fourth is Arusha. Yeah, Arusha is a fourth town having large urbanization rate in Tanzania, and this is an open gate for tourism industry in Tanzania mainland. And Arusha, it's going more with the tourism industry, also with diplomatic ties. For example, Rwanda Genocide Court is set in Arusha. Also, UN has many offices in Arusha. As well, Arusha itself as diplomatic city in the East African Commission. Fourthly, Arusha, let's go to fifth, which is Mbeya. Mbeya is a city with a high emerging in the infrastructure nowadays. Mbeya also is a hub for agriculture in Tanzania. And now it's experiencing large urbanization rate around the oil street in Mbeya. And the sixth is Morogoro. This because the underlying between Dodoma and Dar es Salaam, so it has benefit from both parts. And number 7 is Tanga. Yeah, this is a coastal city located in Tanga region. I think Tanga is one of the oldest city in Tanzania with development than the old city which is stated before. And still, Tanga is continuing having large growth in real estate as well urbanization rate. 8th is Iringa. This is a city or town in the Southern Island region, located in the Iringa region. And Iringa experiencing urbanization rate nowadays. 9th is Moshi. Moshi is near closer to Arusha, and it has a large urbanization rate in the entire region of Kilimanjaro. For example, when tourists want to go to Mount Kilimanjaro, this is a landmark for some who landed to Arusha, or they prefer to go to Moshi. And Moshi, it has around 4.5% of urbanization rate. And number 10, we have 3 towns. Why 3 towns? Because in percentage-wise, it's look like similar, starting with Kigoma. Kigoma is a town located in Kigoma region at the west point of Tanzania. It is bordered to 3 countries, which this region bordered to Democratic Republic of Congo, also bordered to Zambia, and a little bit to Burundi. So Kigoma, it has this benefit from the interborder businesses, and now urbanization rate is very huge. Another one is Songea. This is located in the Ruvuma region. This town, it has the urbanization rate at a high pace because many people now they prefer to build in Songea, which is one of oldest town in Tanzania. And the last one is Mtwara. Mtwara also experienced urbanization rate due to the discovery of natural gas, also the coming of interborder businesses between Malawi, Mozambique and Tanzania, as well the port located in Mtwara. So from here, we can make a conclusion that Tanzanian towns are growing at high pace. And this is making Tanzania to be one of high developing nation in Africa, having many towns with the growth pole, as stated before, for example, Dar es Salaam, it controls all of this town. Also Dodoma, then there's Mwanza, Arusha, Mbeya, as well Tanga. Let's check about the agglomeration. This is the concentration of firms and people in cities provide economic benefits as well as other benefits. So the agglomeration in Tanzania, for example, in cities which is stated before, it's experiencing high pace. Let's look about the impact of agglomeration in Tanzania, starting with the positive one. One is the availability of job. That's why many young people, they are moving from rural areas to urban areas searching for employment, also improve of lives. As we see in many towns, improvement of life is easier compared to rural areas. For example, infrastructures. That's why many people, they prefer to go to town areas. So agglomeration in town areas, influencing is coming. We see economic benefits, which people, they prefer to go to. Another one is private sector's development. Yeah, growing of town, growing of cities, it brings the private sectors development. For example, formal sectors. Nowadays, in many towns, as I stated before, for example, in Dar es Salaam, Dodoma, Arusha, Mbeya, Mwanza, there's a lot of startup. A lot of businesses are formed, and this business provide employment, provide better life. Also, this is create the private sectors for people to own properties, wealthy, and the property rights. Also, this agglomeration, it comes with impact in a negative way. For example, number one is high cost and low productivity. Living in these cities, it's quite expensive compared to rural areas or areas which before it termed as rural areas. For example, in Dar es Salaam, to live in Dar es Salaam, you need to have sustainable income. But also here in high cost living, there is a low productivity. Why? For example, let's look about these major cities, Dar es Salaam, Mwanza, Arusha, and Dodoma. The big problem for low productivity, many people, they waste a lot of time. For example, in Dar es Salaam, people waste around 170 minutes for commuting from work to their living areas, their residence. Also in Arusha, people waste around 120 minutes on commuting. Mwanza, the same case, people waste almost 180 to 200 minutes commuting from work to their residence areas. In Dodoma, at least there some improvement, but still people, they lose almost 60 minutes to 70 minutes from commuting. So this brings about low productivity, and due to disconnection, congestion of the road, and so on. Another negative impact of agglomeration is the informal sector development. For example, development of squatters, disconnected areas. Also, when it comes to businesses, this growing of agglomeration, it brings for many informal sectors developing. In Tanzania, commonly known as the machinga. And nowadays, there are other people they call as a winger. So this development is due to agglomeration. When many young people, they are moved from the rural areas to urban areas without no skills and the intended knowledge to operate or to work in the private sector, they end up in informal sectors. And ending in these informal sectors is not to bring benefit to government, because most of these informal sectors, they don't pay tax. Once they don't pay tax, what it bring out, like major town and the cities, there have a lot of people who they're not contributing to the government. And if they're not contributing to government, government is failed to build the roads. It failed to have a good infrastructure. And all of this together, it brings to impact of infrastructure deficit. For example, many towns here, they have a poor and a low standard infrastructure. Exceptional here are a few towns. For example, Dodoma, which government invested a lot in infrastructure development. But when we take major cities such as Dar es Salaam, Mwanza, or Arusha, many areas outside of CBDs, there's poor roads, poor infrastructure, and this brings to economic deficit too. And the fourth is the limited integration. Yeah, growing of these cities and the large population of people together led to lack of connectivity. Also, poor planning. Here we are talking about town planning and zoning. Major cities in Tanzania, it faces this problem. For example, exceptional here is only Dodoma and some such a few areas in big cities. When we talk about Dar es Salaam, for example, the entire city, the only CBD, it have a clear zoning system. But when you go almost 50 kilometers from the city center. Many areas, it has a poor planning. Also, government deficiency. Here, government, it failed to operate due to the limited integration. For example, major areas in Mwanza, Arusha, Mbeya, Tanga, and the other cities I stated before, it had this government deficiency on working due to overcrowding of people. So the cities absorb a lot of young people, a lot of energetic people to the cities, but those people, due to living in different areas where zoning is poor, integration is poor, all of them lead to government's deficiency to provide services. So let's look about the policy and the future outlook for all of these cities. So to turn urbanization and agglomeration into a driver of economic growth in Tanzania, stakeholders such as government, private sectors, and the people should look about this. One is the planning and management. The government and the private sectors should cooperate together to have a clear planning and management of land. For example, zoning system in major cities should be very well accommodated, for example, to state areas used for residents, also to have areas used for infrastructure, also areas for business matters, areas for industrials, and so on. Another one is the secondary city focus. These major cities should also focus to develop in the secondary city in order to absorb the heat and large population in those cities. For example, Dar es Salaam has now, it has the secondary city, which is the Kibaha, which is municipal, announced the last year, 2025, with the President Samia Suluhu. In this, it will lead to absorb some of people who they cannot afford to live in large cities. Also, in the following growth poles, for example, Arusha, the secondary city is Moshi. When we talk about Mwanza, also there is a secondary city such as Musoma or Bukoba, Kahama, Shinyanga. All of them act as a secondary cities. Also, when we talk about Dodoma, there's a Singida, and now there's a small town which in near future also will be the secondary city, which is called Kibaigwa. Also, when we talk about Mbeya, there's a town such as Iringa. Also, there's Mafinga, Njombe. All of them, it act as a secondary city. Another here in policy in the future outlook, improve of service and the infrastructure, such as water, sanitation, roads, airports, and all amenities which it will be sustainable for growing of the cities. And this together, it will lead to Tanzania to have a future outlook in economic perspectives. Conclusion, Tanzania is growing. As now expected Tanzania to be one of the top leading in Africa for having large economic growth. Here we can have a group such as Ethiopia, Cote d'Ivoire, Tanzania, Kenya, Angola. All of them are leading the pace to have a large economic to join the #1 group, which we are talking about South Africa, Egypt, also Morocco, Algeria. So all of this together, once government improve the infrastructure and people together working to this urbanization, it will bring a lot of opportunities in Tanzania. Thank you.